Hello, I'm Russell Michaels and welcome to Cinepolitics, where we discuss the social and, of course, as always, the political issues which have inspired all kinds of films and documentaries from all around the world. On today's programme, we're discussing Addicted in Afghanistan, produced by Sharron Ward and directed by Afghan filmmaker Jawad Taiman. Their film is an intimate observational documentary that explores the heartbreaking reality behind the headlines of Afghanistan's drugs trade. Filmed over a year, it follows the day-to-day struggles of Zahir and Jabbar, two 15-year-olds who are best friends and drug addicts living in Kabul. Addicted since they were very young, Zahir and Jabbar smoke heroin every day, despite the efforts of their families to help them escape the drug's stranglehold on their young lives. And yet, their problems are even more desperate, since Zahir's mother and younger sister and Jabbar's father are addicts too. We follow Zahir and Jabbar as they check themselves into a hospital for detox treatment. But the two boys' battle with painful withdrawal symptoms is nothing compared to the huge challenge of breaking the cycle of addiction and poverty when they return home.
Jabbar. Salam alaikum.
شواشم شدن نه آرستم مصوب نداریم خیلی میرم میدونیم تو این تا شام دیگه
شام کجا باز میری؟
در نردم من تشنه
از خاطر دردش جرات نمیکنی که
نه خاطر درد جرات نمیکنه که عمل میکنه بسر ما زیاد باشه باز عمل از این بسیار سخت است که تک کنی با تو بگم بسر از بگره مرده بری جون بدی
نخدر مشکل
روزی چند دفعه ایره میکشی؟
روز 3 دفعه
روز 3 دفعه دود میکنی؟ خب بسیار خوب
ما 16 ماه
16 هستی؟
16
چقدر وقت میشه که مواد میگیری؟
8 سال میشه
8 سال؟ یعنی 8 ساله بودی؟
خدا خیلی
روز 4.5 روپیه رو تنها میزنن وقتی که کار نباشه بار نباشه پیسه پیدا کردنش مشکل است. طبعا دست به عمل دوزی میزنن
نه این امریکایی ها که آمد اینی زمان نجان ما نشد نه نایچه هست این نایچه هست امریکا آمد انده شده ایمک اگر امریکا نمی آمد نمی شده
هیچ خواب ندارم از دست جبار دست دارم مرا از اختر شده من دست جبار
حالا چی گفه؟
خیر باشه شب روز من نمیفهم
تو جگرش هستی؟
شب روز نمیفهم بچه این سر مطفیال وقت تحصیلش بود وقت کارش بود وقت بارش بود چی کنیم؟
What makes Zahir and Jabbar's story different from other young addicts in other cities around the world?
In the one sense, it's a universal story because there's many scenarios about drug addicts that you see with Jabbar and Zahir, like they keep saying, I want to give up, I want to give up. They don't really and they don't try and they keep relapsing. So there's some very familiar scenarios, but I think what's unique about it is the fact that they've got, not only have they got the addiction to deal with, they've got the poverty, they've got the war, and the biggest problem is the corruption that they've got to deal with. And there seems to be no way out of it.
So why has this epidemic that is ravaging Afghanistan increased by an incredible 50% in just the last 5 years, according to a new United Nations survey? And with an estimated 40% of the addicts being women and children, what impact will this problem have on the nation's future? Well, here to discuss Addicted in Afghanistan are my guests, Hamid Hakimi, a political analyst who has lived in Afghanistan, and Carl French, a regular film critic. Very warm welcome to the programme, and Carl, to start straight away with you. How do the filmmakers get us to care about these characters so quickly? I mean, we really are gripped from the beginning.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a very, I mean, you can even see from that clip what a kind of powerful and emotional film it is, but it's right from the start. We are thrown into their story. We're kind of engaged with these two characters. They are both very engaging people. We look at these kids, and they're kind of on the cusp of adulthood, but they don't look it. They, you know, I mean, to me, they look more children than young adults, and you just keep finding yourself thinking, it's awful. It's just on some simple level, they seem sweet kind of kids that, if you know, they're separated by a certain kind of culture and language, but they could be your son or your nephew.
And they're also very you know, included in their family. They're not somehow outcasts or delinquents on the street.
Oh, absolutely. Very, very quickly we come to know their family and the problems.
Now, Hamid, what kind of corruptions, what patterns of corruption could the producer there be talking about? Taking money away from the hospitals, of which there are few enough anyway.
That's one of the things she's pointing at, I believe. Corruption runs through the system, so the whole system is corrupt. Whether you're talking about the civil side of stuff, whether you're talking about the health, education, military, high up into the parliament, all of this. Corruption's got a multi-layered existence now in Afghanistan. I think what she's trying to talk about, is the whole notion of aid coming to Afghanistan and the fact that it's not reaching the right people.
From NGOs, aid
NGOs abroad,
country.
yes. Basically, the Western taxpayers' money that's supposed to go to the poor people, you know, cure people like Jabbar and Zahir, who end up not really getting what they deserve, and that's a better treatment, a fair treatment.
I've heard of the phrase poppy palaces in Kabul. Could some of the money be going to fund, you know, residences, bulletproof cars, that kind of thing? Absolutely,
because Afghanistan is not a country which has its own production of wealth. The wealth it's a rentier state in many ways. The wealth comes from abroad. So all these officials, all these people who are within the little holes of money that comes through, you know, they'll benefit from it.
Carl, we don't get a wider picture. The filmmakers have gone for this microcosm. There were interviews with UN officials and others. What has been sacrificed by not getting that bigger picture? What's been gained by keeping kind of laser view on the two boys?
Well, I mean, exactly as the question suggests, it does both things. It loses something. You do feel, to an extent, frustrated because you don't get context. You want to know facts about this and what's happening and what organisations are doing and why they're so,
and where the drugs are
coming from, and absolutely the details of that. But it's a kind of it may have been a practical decision, but it's also a kind of an aesthetic, artistic decision, or if you can say that it certainly strengthens a film to an extent, because you absolutely focus on what as you rightly say, what is a microcosm of a kind of multifaceted problem, just through the experiences essentially of these two children and their immediate families, and you come to see them as a kind of embodiment, or you know, these twin embodiments of an extremely complex.
And also to add to that, I think we have to appreciate that this is a pioneering move in many ways. So something of this sort. I know the producer is not Afghan, but I know the director is Afghan. So we should really appreciate the fact that, you know, there is an Afghan input into this. So there's something that's, and we can clearly see that through the way that the conversations are allowed to happen, because only an Afghan would know that.
Right. Yeah. And the subtitling I'll ask you a little about later as well. But let's pause there and see a clip where Zahir and Jabbar check themselves in to a detox hospital where they must endure 8 days of painful treatment to stand a chance of breaking their addiction.
تحمل میکنه نگه اگر تحمل کنه
فکر میکنی که بتونی قدرت شد داری؟
میشه خدا میرم
آقا میتونی بودم مبتلیس ها؟
گرفتی تو طالب
کم گرفتیم
زهر زهر چند سال داری فیلم؟
نمیفهمم
چرا چند درد داری؟
من دکتر هستم.
درد شدید است که نمیدونم؟
نگه.
نفر مست شده.
همکارم بگو بتشه.
کالای میته.
جاوید نشه که شما میده شما بگو بده کلا.
نه شیشه میده نمی چه شیشه میده کنی.
میزنم قدر.
کار زور نیست نی روز اول ما برات گفتیم. این کار گپا با دلت است نه؟ کار از روز اول گفتیم با دل تو میکنم من.
کار زور نیستم کارش بگو بگو کارم باشه. در خلقم تنگ است. تداوی صحیح نیست. این از این چیزاست میبرم میرم. او من پاسم بسازم در روزم دیگه رنجم بکشم هرچی بکشم پاسم برم دیگه فایده نداره.
بابا کم ماما پتاکی بود. والا. وای ماما فعلا.
چطور است وضعیتت؟
خوب است.
بهتر شده؟ دوامی درد کم شده؟
درد بخند.
قهرمان شده دیگه.
بله.
خدا باشه نجات.
چطور است حال طبیعت؟
خدا خوب کردنشیم جیور.
نام خدا.
So they're trying to resolve their problems, but Hamid, why is there such an acute presence of this problem in so many young people's lives? I mean, much younger than these two, for example.
The answer is multifold. I'll try and be brief. I think it's the availability issue. So the drugs are much more, especially heroin is widely available in Afghanistan now. Whereas in the past, you'd have opium as a substance available, but it was much more in the villages. I'm not saying that Afghanistan did not grow up poppy before, it did. But it was much more of an exotic item, not something out there for making money and for being, you know, a substance of profitability in a sense. So that's one issue. I think the lack of
a kind of panacea drug for the whole country.
So the idea that there is the vastness of the items availability. Secondly, I think we see a collapse of society. I mean, throughout the documentary, we see a very sad picture of a society. Forget the government, forget the officials. A society that has failed the young people. I mean, these young people have absolutely nothing to do. And therefore, they get into loneliness, they get into depression. At one point, they talk about the bad friendships, you know, that why they get addicted, they say it's the bad friendships. So you have all these types of evils, which you have in every society, but you have intervening factors as well to kind of stop it. In Afghanistan, unfortunately, we don't have that.
And the wars, of course.
Absolutely.
Carl,
that's exactly. Oh, sorry, but
I was just going to come into you on this poverty question as to, well, when Zahir comes home, he comes home to kind of where he started, to a house that's empty. There's drug smoking equipment on the floor. His mother isn't there. The rent isn't paid. What about this cycle between addiction and poverty?
Well, exactly. I mean, the points seem to be, you know, the film raises, as very good documentaries and all films do, it's a balance between particularity and generality. And it's a very particular story. It's just about these two children, but they are exemplars of the entire kind of universal, global problem of drugs, which is that for drug addiction to be kind of prevalent, you need the availability of drugs and the conditions whereby people will want to take drugs, and that's exactly, they're caught in, well, you know, to use a cliche, the kind of spiral of this thing. So they go through this, what is clearly an inadequate treatment, but it's the best they can have, this kind of 8-day cleanup, and then they're sort of spewed out by the system and dumped back precisely where they were.
Yes.
So there's nothing has actually changed. So there's no real reason for them not to just take drugs again.
Well, Hamid, what about the root cause, the poppy fields themselves? Some people say, of course, for years, that they should be destroyed. What would be the consequences of destruction of people's fields?
Well, I was reading a report by United Nations recently, and they were actually talking in the context of hashish, and this is United Nations. They say that the farmers who did not grow hashish lost 30% of their income. Now, think about it. compared to 30 years ago, the families are bigger, employment is much less, the opportunities for employment, wars are a lot more prevalent. So you end up with a society where the source of income is solely privately generated.
Right.
So you have farmers dealing with drought, on the other hand dealing with wars, dealing with lack of employment in other sectors, and in the meantime, you know, the only sole source of their kind of viability of their lives being destroyed. So there should be not just a destruction element to it. Nobody's, I'm not for promotion of drugs, but I say that, you know, before you destroy something, you talk to them. What do you give them in return?
Right.
Yeah.
Now, very briefly, Carl, the mother, Zahir's mother, is somehow involved in his, her backstory is his backstory. How is guilt involved in her character? Because she seems to be a cause of his problems.
I mean, there are very many causes, but the one clear one is that she has tremendous specific guilt, because when they arrived in the city, and then she was off in search of money and opium, which she'd long been dependent on, and then she felt he was bored, he didn't have anything to do, so she just introduced him to drugs as a way of kind of getting through the day, combating boredom. So
maybe at the age of 3 or 4.
I mean,
and it seems like her guilt could be driving the story in some ways, because she's so desperate for him to give up. But she's addicted herself, of course. Let's pause there and see a clip where Jabbar admits himself for treatment for a second attempt. Meanwhile, Zahir discovers a new opportunity for a job weaving carpets.
مقرراتتان این دفعه جدی امرش میگیریم که اگر این دفعه اگر برآمد در دان دروازه شفاخانه حق نداره که بیاید دوباره. صحیح است؟
صحیح است.
من مادرشم مرد سر مردی من نبیاد. نه خلاص. بچی که از این عملی ترک شود.
چه رقمی میوافق علينا؟ ببین چه رقم میوافق به ذریعه المک به ذریعه کلید. بازار مای چه رقمیه؟ پیسه میته شما رو چی میته؟ پیسه میته. ما چند؟ مای تقریبا هر چی کار کنی اجور پریست.
درد دارم خود دمیاگه خدا خواهند چرچی
خواهدی که در خیمه خدا میکشم تون بکشد که در مرگ ما من که فکر میکنم به خدا مرگ ما خوبه
وازی که در آخرتر وازی که در ناتوانتر بودم ابو تمام دو روز شدیر کرد قدم روز سه روز دیگه دیگه شدم قبل
ودرم شو ودرم
قرار درسی های صفحه چه کردیم این رو چی گفتی؟
رولا کوئی میرا قرآن کتاب کنی قرآن
روز پیشت میاریم
قرآن کتاب کنی قرآن کتاب کنی بشنیم بانی الحمدلله من نمیگویم بس یکی نیم دکترمان نیست نه عادي قرآن ما قدم قرآن كتاب کنی
And tragically, Jabbar's second attempt fails as he quits and leaves the hospital. But Hamid, why are some poppy fields destroyed and others not? I mean, we've seen images in the media of poppy fields being destroyed.
I mean, it's clear lack of commitment on the part of the government, because they know it will produce backlash. But also, I mean, I was witness in my province, there were a lot of, first-hand witnesses that they used to destroy the crops which used to be next to the road where the dignitaries, the foreign NGO representatives would arrive, and they would try and do that with hand, because you'd normally have soldiers lashing with sticks through the poppy field. But then as soon as they would leave, they would have already been bribed, so they would just leave it at that and then go home.
So you're describing a fake destruction of poppy fields for the media?
Well, this is something I've experienced myself in my province, but way back at the beginning of Karzai's regime. But right. I know there are other instances as well. now. Though they say that it has become more serious now, they do destroy, but there have certainly been instances where they haven't really destroyed it for real.
Interesting. So the commitment hasn't really been there.
No.
Carl, to come back to the two boys, how is their treatment really testing their friendship?
Well, I mean, it's as we were saying, it's a story that we get quite intimately involved in, and we care about them, and we see that that on the surface, Jabbar has become quite adept, and he has. I think it's kind of classic kind of drug dependence way of being in denial and the resistance to treatment, and he is, on the surface, the weaker of the two. He's more talkative and on some level, apparently the more eloquent one, but he's also the weaker one who keeps falling back off, and then without giving too
But
too
by
much
this
away,
point, they're different because Zahir is more healthy.
Is healthier, and he's sticking with the treatment. And then because Jabbar has kind of relapsed, then if their friendship is going to be sustained, I mean, it's almost like a kind of classic Hollywood tale of being on the wrong side of the track suddenly. Can their friendship survive if one of them wants to get clean and the other one doesn't? And it becomes a tremendously involving drama.
In some ways, they're held hostage by the drug itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and there's a clear sense of resentment in Jabbar's statement when I can hear it because obviously it's native language I listen to, and he says that, okay, if Zahir could get through it, good for him. So it's kind of like that feeling of resentment that he couldn't go through it, but still he's in denial, and that weakness they have.
And from this point, their friendship starts to diverge in a sad way. Yeah. Let's pause there. We're running out of time a little, but let's see our last clip, where following Zahir's successful treatment, he suddenly disappears.
کمک بهتر بود صبح شد خونه گفتم چی شد گذار بیرون شد گفت شد یک ساعت دو بر ایران تو خونه بشی کرات جاباره گونجی بود جاباره گونجی بود بدی قرار گفت بیدار چی کرده گرد داخلی چی کرده قرار بردمشم به علم فرنگ کجا بدی چند دو ساعت داده بدی داده آره چی کار
اجازه است؟ خانه شماست نه؟ اجازه خواهد
بیا
خانه است ببین
بیا بدار ما خود اینم تو جای زندگی میکنیم
که نمیشه؟ نه
How is the Western military presence affecting the opium trade?
There's a lot of unspoken things that people can't really corroborate. They can't prove it, but there are a lot of people who talk about, American airplanes helping to even ship opium out, which is a major claim. But again, it's one of those things that unless you can prove it, you can't really say that. But there are a lot of people who are very suspicious of what's really going on there. The biggest problem is if you look at the areas in which it's all grown, where all the opium's grown, it needs a lot of water. There's no irrigation in those areas, and you literally have to bring the opium, the water, through India and through the borders, through Pakistan, and you can't do that without a lot of cooperation.
Hamid, you've lived in these kind of areas where the poppy fields are grown. Do you agree with the producer's assertion about water being used politically?
I mean, I respect Sharon, but I would disagree with her in the sense that, that she kind of, she says that the water probably needs to be brought in from neighboring countries, and that I don't believe that, because Afghanistan, first of all, where the poppy is grown, you have to look at the road systems there. This just collapsed. So there's no way for water to be transported from Pakistan, for example. Pakistan is suffering from drought itself. there's a lot of talks in the circles of the common people who say that the Americans are using fertilizers. They're spraying it with fertilizers. Others say no, they're spraying it with water. But I think the biggest problem that there is, and it's real, is the indifference, because there's a very acute and very prominent emphasis on dealing with Afghanistan problem in a sort of counterinsurgency militaristic way. So these types of social issues and these kind of criminal issues are sidelined and being indifferent towards. But I don't believe that there is any kind of active American irrigation program going on to.
Right, OK, well that sorts that out. Carl, there's an update to the story. What we saw in the clip there was actually an overdose on the part of Zahir, very sadly, so he came very close to death. But the older brother has come back to the house, has been so appalled that he's taken them away to Helmand province, and they are now back clean of drugs and hoping to set up a business, carpet weaving. So my question for you is, does the hopeful ending of the film, as seems to be playing out, is it a better ending, or is the ending we've got in the film, which is quite tragic, a better message for the problem that Afghanistan's facing?
Well, I mean, I think that the ending that they had is they're giving us as honest an ending as they can. I think that there is, I mean, it's certainly not a deeply hopeful film, but there is an element of hope. Of tentative optimism there, very tentative, in that just through the characters of the two boys, you just think that they are, given the chance, these boys could thrive and do something very interesting with their lives, which is one kind of simple, possibly slightly naive point. The other thing is the notion, as fragile as it is, of this kind of the weaving enterprise, and then the kind of weaving as this that is a concrete or kind of fabric way out of addiction, that they have something to go to after getting out of addiction. Their lives can be constructive, literally.
So in the end, the carpet weaving is a symbol of hope.
It is a symbol, exactly.
And perhaps we're running out of time, but if we can just end on, perhaps pomegranates could take over from poppy fields if the politics works.
I certainly hope so, but unfortunately the symbolism of this picture, I mean, the Russian Cultural Center, for example, used to be the symbol of beauty of Kabul. Now it's a symbol of decay.
And that's where we must end, I'm afraid. We've run out of time. It's a warm thank you to my guests, Hamid Hakimi and Carl French. And also thank you, and I hope you'll join us again at the same time next week. But in the meantime, we'd love to hear your views too, as usual, so please do email us at the address on the screen, cinepolitics@presstv.co.uk, and join the debate with your questions or any suggestions for future films to discuss. But for now, goodbye.